Welcome to Madison City Channel's Know Your Candidates interviews, co-sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Dane County. I'm your interviewer, Eve Galanter, and I would like to introduce Shelia Stubbs, running for State Assembly in District 78. Welcome.
Good morning, Eve. How are you?
Good. As we begin, I'd like you to give an opening statement as to the educational, vocational, and civic experience you have, which prepares you for this office, and why you are running for the State Assembly.
Thank you. First of all, thank you to the Women League of Voters of Dane County for this interview. My name is Shelia Stubbs. I am the state representative for District 78. I've been elected for 8 years, so I come with an extensive amount of experience. I was elected on the Dane County Board of Supervisors for 16 years, so I have a total career of 24 years doing public service. I know firsthand what it takes to get things done. I've been a voice for the voiceless. I am an elected official that believes in less talk, more action. I have a bachelor's degree in political science from Tougaloo College and Tougaloo, Mississippi. I have a bachelor's of criminal justice administration from Ladysmith College in Ladysmith, Wisconsin, Mount Scenario College. And I have my master's from Cardinal Stritch University and a master's in business. So I know what it takes to get this work done. I believe in education firsthand. So of course, I'm not going to say something I don't believe in. I'm running for this office because you need a strong leader. I've been a fighter all my life. I've been fighting for policies. I've been fighting for practices. I've been fighting for solutions. So I know what this community needs. I know firsthand in South Madison, being elected in 2018, I had an historic election. I became the first African American ever elected to the state legislature from Dane County, breaking 170 years of history. See, I am a change maker. I come with experience. I come making decisions. But most importantly, I represent my constituents. They have decided to keep me at our state capitol for 8 years. I'm going to ask my constituents again to bring me back so I can continue to do the important work that needs to be done across our state of Wisconsin.
Well, how would you like to see the state utilize the current budget surplus?
I think that that's really important, first of all, that we have a surplus. There are other states that don't have the surplus we had. So being elected with Governor Tony Evers, coming into the state in 2018 with a lot of energy, having a Democratic governor, having legislators that I can say my colleagues that are Democrat, we've worked firsthand to make sure we're doing everything we can do to help our constituents. One of my top priorities is supporting public education, supporting schools, supporting colleges. As a former special ed teacher, I know firsthand how important it is to give funding to our schools. I know there's an issue with our current school funding. So number one, we have to go back and craft what works for our students, what works for our teachers, and especially for those that need those extra accommodations and aids. I know firsthand, being in our state capitol, that we have so many constituents that have a lot of priorities. Affordability, it's critical for us right now. We need to make sure we have housing that is affordable, where we're not raising taxes where people cannot afford to stay there. I think it's also important that we expand health care across the state of Wisconsin, making sure every Wisconsinite has the services that they need to take care of themselves. We need to reform the Wisconsin criminal justice system. I know as the ranking member, Democrat, on the Department of Corrections, on our committee, standing committee, I know how important it is to make sure that we offer rehabilitative services, that we have those that need to be incarcerated, and those that deserve to be out in our community to have alternatives, to make sure that we are addressing residents, employment, support, treatment, and transportation. 5 priorities that are so important for our community. It is also important that we do something about the gun violence that's happening in our community. I believe in defending a woman's right to choose. We got to make sure our reproductive rights are there that are so critical. We need to protect our clean air and water. I am asthmatic, and I will tell you firsthand how important it is that we have clean air. I can say firsthand that I've been in some places where it's been extremely polluted. Today it's going to be up in the 90s. It's going to be really hard for me to breathe in, but I'm here taking this ongoing, this interview. But I also want to make sure that we take care of those that are vulnerable, our seniors, people with disabilities. I want to make sure that we're doing what is expected across the state of Wisconsin. And I can say firsthand, I've been a champion taking care of our children, taking care of our seniors, taking care of our public schools. As a former representative to the University of Wisconsin-Madison, I know how important it was to take care of our students, to take care of our professors. I will continue to do that because a promise and a vote for Shelia Stubbs is a promise to go back and do the work across the state of Wisconsin as it relates to education.
Well, what guardrails, if any, would you support to protect our environment, health, property values, and household budgets from large projects such as hyperscale data centers and CAFOs, concentrated agricultural feeding operations?
Absolutely. We know technology and energy is happening. Look, I serve on the Energy and Utilities Committee right now in the state legislature, and we know data centers are happening. I want to make sure that we are putting in protections to help those that are being impacted by data centers. If you are going to be a data center, I'm asking you to pay a fund so that we can make sure that we keep our environment safe, that we can make sure we have a fund there to make sure that our taxpayers, those ratepayers, that we're able to reduce the cost that they are paying. It's important that we build these data centers where those that are out there doing the infrastructure, we have a living wage for them. We want to make sure that they can afford to live where they are. We want to make sure that we're using the greenhouse standards to build out these data centers. But I think most importantly, we want to make sure that our community understands what's happening. They don't want to wake up in the morning and realize there's a data center, don't know what's going to happen, what are the impacts. So I believe in regulatory, environmental policies. I want to make sure, again, that we have clean air, that we have clean water. But most importantly, because technology is happening, it is happening so rapidly. I want to make sure that we are protecting our community, that we are protecting those that are going to be impacted. Look, it's expensive to stay in your household. People are saying it's costing us so much money. So making sure that we have dollars and cents and creating a fund where we can make sure those that are utilizing those data centers, that they don't get additional costs, that those costs are being reduced. And that's the regulations that I have supported in our state capitol this session.
Well, what, if anything, should the state legislature do to improve election processes and safeguard our election integrity?
Yeah, well, something I've been working hard on is the Voter Rights Act, making sure we have a statewide Voter Rights Act. I think it's critically important. But I think also, let me start off by saying the state of Wisconsin is one of the worst states that have had gerrymandering. I'm so grateful for Governor Tony Evers in this election that he was able to pass fair maps. I can say to you firsthand, I am one of those elected officials. Because of the fair maps, I had a new map, a new district. I went from District 77 to District 78, from Southwest to Southeast Madison. So I have felt the impact of the fair maps. I think we have to continue to support nonpartisan legislation. And I mean that because I know firsthand it is so important that elected officials do not choose our constituents. But it is time for our constituents to choose us. I have always believed in nonpartisan redistricting maps, and so I want to make sure that we do that. I can say to you firsthand, with these new maps, I continue to educate my constituents about the maps. They don't always understand, how bad it was that we were gerrymandered. So I have some constituents that I've had to reborder. They were so sad to lose me. But I said, look, this makes the maps fair. You can also always have contact with me. So I just want to say, Voter Rights Act, doing it at a statewide effort is so critical, but nonpartisan maps are even more critical, that we are able to support it. On the Dane County Board of Supervisors, I remember going through this process when we had to get the new maps. And it is a process that I support and I will continue to support. Again, as elected officials, we should not be choosing our constituents, but our constituents definitely need to choose us.
Share with our audience an example of an effort with which you've been involved that demonstrates how you can be effective in creating policy change. And what other priorities do you have that we may not have already addressed?
Yeah, so I think that's a really great question. It's very compounded at that. There is so much legislation that I've been working on within our state capitol. I think one of the pieces of legislation I'll talk about quickly is when Mr. George Floyd was killed in Minnesota and Jacob Blake was shot in Kenosha. At that time, I became the co-chair of the Speaker's Task Force on Racial Disparities. During that time, we were able to draft and create 18 bills, and 9 of those bills were signed into law by Governor Evers. It was a really difficult time, not only in our state and our country and worldwide. What I decided to do was roll up my sleeves, go in a room with protesters and law enforcement and pastors and community activists and say, how do we move our state forward? Something has happened. We need to do something. And so I was a freshman legislator being given a co-chair position. Not only that, I was given a gavel as a freshman to go in and work on legislation. That never happens. So I was historic in that piece. There's another piece of legislation I've been working at, you probably have heard about, but Missing and Murdered African American Women and Girls Task Force. It's a piece of legislation I'm really, really, really passionate about. During 2020, Wisconsin had the highest number of missing and murdered African American women and girls in our nation. Whoever thought that? So what I decided to do is to create a task force to go and say, what is happening? We know it has everything to do with human trafficking, but something is happening. And I wanted to say, when family members are given a report that their loved one is missing, something is happening in that process. So I was able to get it bipartisan. We fell short this session. This is the 3rd time I've introduced it. But again, it is legislation that I'm working on. The other piece of legislation is creating the Office of Violence Prevention. I know that's something Governor Evers has supported me on, and that is another piece of legislation.
What would you like to say to the viewing audience as we complete this interview?
But first and foremost, thank you so much, Eve, and the League of Women Voters of Dane County. I think that this is so critical that you give us an opportunity to speak to our constituents. Again, there are so many priorities that I have heard constituents say that are so important. Supporting our public schools, expanded health care, protecting our clean air and water, making sure that women have the rights for reproductive freedoms, affordability and housing. Those are critical key components that I can say that I hear firsthand. I want you to know that I've been a fighter. I am one of the most bipartisan legislators in the building. I've been able to get over 70 bills passed this session. I am one of only one Democrat that was able to get a bill passed, a missing child alert this session with my name there. So when you select Representative Shelia Stubbs, you are supporting someone who is going to be a fighter, who is strategic, who's going to go in that building and work hard for our constituency. Again, my name is Representative Shelia Stubbs, and I want you to know how much I have appreciated serving this district. I will continue to do everything I can do to not only work across the aisles, but to get bills passed into law.
Well, I want to thank Shelia Stubbs for speaking with us and thank the viewing audience for taking the time to know your candidates. I want to remind everyone the general election is Tuesday, November 3rd. Every election is important. Please vote. On behalf of Madison City Channel and the League of Women Voters of Dane County, I thank you for joining us.